Hello dear class 11 students, welcome back to this online tutoring alternative English class with me as your tutor, Esther Zobio. Today we are going to learn a very interesting and an inspiring story from the prose section titled The Letter A by Christy Brown. Christy Brown was born into a working class Irish family at the Rotunda Hospital in Dublin on 5th of June 1932. He was a writer and a painter. Brown was someone who was suffering from cerebral palsy. Now, what is cerebral palsy? Cerebral palsy is a neurological disorder caused by a non-progressive brain injury or malformation that occurs while the child's brain is under development. It affects a person's ability to move, to maintain balance and posture. Christy could write or type only with the toes of his left foot. His most recognized work is his autobiography, which is titled My Left Foot. So the lesson that we are going to do today is taken from his book, My Left Foot. It is an excerpt from his autobiography. In this lesson, Christy Brown describes how he overcame his massive handicap with his willpower, firm determination, and with the continuous support of his family, especially the love and support of his mother. Christy Brown was born as the 10th child in a family of 22. His mother faced some complications while giving birth to him. When he was just 4 months old, his mother noticed that his head would constantly fall backwards whenever she tried to feed him. So she attempted to correct this by placing his hand at the back of his head to keep it steady. But when she took it away, back it would drop again. Now that was the first sign when his mother noticed that something was wrong with his son Christy. As he grew older, his mother became aware of some other defects too. His hands were always clenched tightly and twisted unnecessarily almost all the time. He could not even hold the nipple of the bottle because he could not freely open or close his mouth. At 6 months, he could not sit without having a mountain of pillows around him. At 12 months, it was the same. All these signs alerted his mother. So, his mother was very worried by this. Therefore, she consulted doctors. Now, almost all the doctors who examined Christy labeled him a very interesting but also a hopeless case. Many others told her that his son Christy was mentally and physically defective and would remain so. They assured her that nothing could be done for him. But she refused to accept this truth. She had a firm belief that her son may be physically weak, but not mentally retarded. His mother was a woman of firm determination. She believed that though his body was crippled, his mind was not. So filled by true motherly love, she tried to take care of him by herself. No matter how dull and incapable he might grow up to be, she was determined to treat him equally like other normal children. That was the most important decision as far as his future life was concerned. It meant Christy will always have his mother by his side. But it wasn't easy for his mother because now the relatives and friends had decided otherwise. They argued that Christy should be taken kindly and sympathetically, but not seriously. But his mother wasn't content just to say that he was not an idiot, but she set out to prove it, not because of any rigid sense of duty, but out of love. 4 years rolled by, and Christy was already 5. But even at the age of 5, he could neither sit nor speak. His body parts were useless. His mother would show him pictures of animals and flowers and ask him to repeat them after her, trying to communicate. She hoped that Christy would at least learn and communicate with other people. One day she had been sitting with Christy for hours, showing him pictures of animals and flowers out of a great big storybook, and trying to let Christy repeat the names given there, trying without success to get Christy to repeat them. This had gone on for hours while she talked and laughed with him. Then at the end of it, she leaned over and asked him, "Did you like it, Christy? Did you like the bears and monkeys and all the lovely flowers? Nod your head for yes, like a good boy." But Christy could make no sign that he could understand her. She turned away from her curious stare and left the room crying. The door closed behind her, and it all seemed hopeless. Now they spoke of an institution, a place where people with special needs are taken care of. "Never," said his mother, almost fiercely, when this was suggested to her. She firmly denied them, saying, "I know my boy is not an idiot. It is his body that is crippled, not his mind, and I am sure of that." Yet inwardly she prayed God would give her some proof of her faith. Christy was already 5 and still showed no sign of intelligence. He showed no apparent interest in things, except with his toes, especially those of his left foot. Though Christy was always surrounded by his family that loved and hoped for him, yet he was lonely, imprisoned in a world of his own, unable to communicate with others, separated from people, as though a glass wall stood between him and them. Then suddenly it happened. A moment that changed his life completely. It was the afternoon of a cold, gray December day. The whole family were gathered around a big kitchen fire. In a corner, his brother and sister were sitting, huddled together, and they were writing little sums on an old chipped slate, using a bright piece of yellow chalk. Christy was sitting close to them. He was watching them. He was staring at what they were doing. Then what happened? The yellow piece of chalk attracted him so much. Christy was so fascinated by the yellow piece of chalk. It appeared to him as if it had been a stick of gold. Suddenly, he desperately wanted to use the chalk. He unconsciously grabbed the chalk out of his sister's hand with his left foot. He held it tightly between his toes and started scribbling it on the slate. He was doing that. Then suddenly he realized what he was doing. Next moment, he stopped, dazed and surprised, looking down at a stick of yellow chalk stuck between his toes, not knowing what to do with it next. His mother came in from the pantry with a steaming pot in her hand. She saw Christy in the corner with the chalk between his toes. She put down the pot. Then she crossed over to him, knelt down beside him, and taking another piece of chalk, she deliberately drew the letter A on the floor and told Christy to copy it. Now, at first, Christy couldn't. Each and every person in the room were tensed, excited, and frozen, and eagerly waited for a miracle to happen in their midst. Now, Christy put out his foot, made a wild, jerking step with the chalk, which produced a very crooked line. His mother held the slate steady for him and said, "Try again, Chris, try again." He felt overwhelmed when his mother encouraged him. And he tried again and drew two sides of the letter. By the time the chalk broke out, he wanted to give up and throw away the chalk. But due to his mother's encouragement, he gathered his strength to write. Out went his foot again. He shook, he sweated, and strained every muscle. But slowly he drew it, the letter A. There it was on the floor, before him. It looked shaky with awkward wobbly sides and a very uneven center line, but it was the letter A. When he wrote the letter A, his father stooped and hoisted him onto his shoulder because he was so proud of his son. His mother knew that it was a sign of intelligence and not just an imitative gesture, because Christy had done it with intense effort. So tears rolled out of her eyes. This had opened his road to mental freedom. He could express his desires and thoughts through words. Thus, he was able to break the wall between him and the other people. So writing the letter A was like a new beginning for him. So that's the end of the brief summary of the lesson. Now we'll be doing a character analysis of Christy's mother. Christy feels that not many mothers would have treated him the way his mother did. He feels that they would have treated him kindly and sympathetically, but not seriously. They would have not struggled to the extent Christy's mother struggled to mold him. So he felt very thankful for having a mother like his. Christy's mother decided to regard him on the same plane as the others. She thought that it was his body which was crippled, not his mind. Therefore, she decided to raise him like a normal child. Christy considered her mother's decision a momentous one because it meant that his mother will always be by his side to fight all the battles and all the struggles that were to come in his way and to inspire him with new strength when he was beaten. Eventually, the decision proved to be a significant one in Christy's life. Christy achieved the impossible simply because he was given the chance by his mother to express himself. His mother didn't give up hope, but struggled for him. She gave him all important help and molded him right way. She didn't give ear to the doctors, relatives, and friends that her son was imbecile. She loved him and believed in him. She thought that his son, Christy, was not an idiot. She took Christy in her own hands and treated him in the same way she treated her other children. To her, it was only his body that was crippled, not his mind. She removed all the obstacles that came in his way. She spent hours with him, showing him pictures, telling him names of animals and flowers, and gave him all care and love. Finally, her faith, patience, unconditional love, and strong determination rewarded her, and her struggle changed into triumph as her continuous support for Christy made him learn to express himself through written words. So that's the character analysis of Christy's mother. Now let's discuss the significance of the title, The Letter A. The first letter that Christy ever learned was the letter A. And this letter indicates a beginning to a new life for Christy. Everything changed when he wrote the letter A with a chalk tightly gripped between his toes. On his left foot, he could feel, think, and wanted to express, but he could not pour out his feelings until the day he learned how to write the letter A with the support and encouragement that he got from his mother. Therefore, writing the letter A also paved the way to a new life and a key to the author's mental freedom. The author was assured with the fact that it was a source for relaxing his tensed body and twisted mouth. It also conveys his journey through written words, which is more lasting than the spoken words. Christy's story is one of perseverance and focus. Though his mother continuously supported him, if Christy himself wasn't determined enough to give himself into learning how to write and to paint, then this would have been a different story, or we wouldn't even be studying about him today. But Christy Brown himself is a proof of how perseverance and hard work pays off. I'm sure his story of all the struggles he had to go through and his success has inspired us in many ways. So students, with that we come to the end of our lesson for today. We'll get back to you in our next video lesson. Until then, stay safe.